This conference will now be recorded.
That's what I said. Are you able to understand what I'm saying? Discuss those things in the session later. Okay? Yeah. So yesterday we were creating pods and using some configuration files. We're writing some scripts in YAML. So did we create services? Okay, we'll talk about port numbers today. I think we have not gone through the port numbers. We'll talk about the port numbers. Let's talk about port numbers. So let's talk about ports first, and then we'll talk about how to create services and how do we link services and with the pod. So far, we have seen how to create services using the Kubernetes expose command. But how do you create these services using configuration files? We write some scripts in YAML again, and using those scripts, we'll be creating services, and then we create a pod, link the pod with the service. So how that is done? Okay. Let's talk about that. So moving on to our Kubernetes. So I think this is our master. Log into the master settings. So where are these scripts? There we have the scripts. Now let's talk about ports actually. Let's talk about ports. Yeah. So when you talk about ports, and we have three types of ports. One is like a normal port, other one is a target port, and then also we have node port. So what is a node port? Node port is a service. So why do we call it node port? What is node port? Yeah. So if you want to access your pod from outside, then we map the pod as in a service, and by mapping to the port number of the node. So the communication happens to the port number of the node. So we call it node port. Okay. Well, go with the node port, and then so where is that node port? Let me just give you the script first, then we'll talk about that. So anyone has set up the clusters? So we have port, and then you have node port, target port, and then you have port. So firstly, port. What is the purpose of ports? So if you want to access your container or your pod from other pods, okay. So you can go with that. So port, and then you have target port. So port purpose is only within the cluster, not from outside. So I have my cluster, let's say, and we have two clusters. One is cluster one, we have other cluster two. And we have two pods in cluster one and other pod in other cluster. And I want to access that pod from one cluster to another cluster. So that is not possible. So if you want to do that, so we have node ports for that purpose. So ports purpose is only for within the cluster. I have two pods, pod one and pod two, and I want to check that whether will I be able to communicate from pod one to pod two. Then how do you do that? With the help of port number. That is cluster only. Then your target port. So we know the node port. Okay. So for external purpose. Then what is the target port? See, node port actually, for example, you have a service. Okay. So target is part of the node, and let's say 1 second. So there is a service, and the service is sending a request to the particular pod. So node port is for outside purpose, external purpose, and that service is sending a request to the pod, and service will be sending a request to the target port. So what is the target port? Simply, the target port is a port number where your application is running. Yeah. So there is a target port. Target port will be for the purpose of service communication. Service will be communicating with your target port number. Whereas port number is for external only cluster purpose, from cluster to cluster. Target port, the purpose of the target port is for service communication purpose. Service wants to communicate how the service communication works to the target port. And node port is for external purpose. Okay. So we have these different port numbers, and we'll try to create a pod now. And in that pod, I will be using these three different port numbers. Okay. Apart from these three, there is another port number, container port. What is the container port? Yeah. So on that container, you have your application running. So that is the default port number of the container. So that is your container port number. Yesterday, I was creating some containers, I created some pods. So for them, we have some port numbers. These are the port numbers. Okay. Well, anyway, so that container port number only for the within the container only, not from outside the container. So what's the difference between port versus container port? Port is for cross-port communication. Okay. And what is the container port? Yes, your application by default running on that particular port number within the container. That's a container port. Okay. So I'm going to create a service now. We have seen the port number concepts. The concepts, we have gone through the concepts, but I will be creating a configuration file. This. How the configuration file I will be creating, what type of configuration file I will be creating. I will be creating a configuration file. In that configuration file, I will be creating a service. So we know what is a service, right? So, and that service I will be creating with the help of a configuration file. Rather than, so using kubectl expose command, I will be creating an configuration file, writing a manifest here or YAML file. That YAML file is going to create our service. Okay, right. So let's do that. And so first I will be creating a service, then I will be creating a pod. And pod also will be creating using the configuration files. So before we create a pod, we have service ready. And after when pod is created, and I want to link that pod with the service. Okay. So for yesterday's session, what we have done, first the pod was created. After the pod was created, we have exposed that to a service. But now what we are doing, we are creating a service. Then after creating a pod, or while creating a pod, I'm going to link my pod with that service. And what are the details I'm going to mention within that service? I'm going to mention the port number, and then target port, and then what else? Node port. So when you create a service, you remember Docker expose, kubectl expose command. So what we have mentioned in it, what is the syntax? We mentioned the service name, right? -n type is equals to node port service. But in that particular command, we can also mention the port as well. After that type, we can mention the port number as well. But here, we're going to do that through the scripts. Okay. So let's go with this script now. So this is for survey purpose. So everything is same. The only thing, now we have a major change. What is the change is? Change is kind. Okay. So what is that kind is? Service. Okay. Then. So, but yesterday it was, what is the kind? Pod was the kind, and now it is. Then we have metadata. And what is that metadata is regarding? Service name, correct? So that's the service name. Let's create a service name. Something like, let's say, test service. That's my service name. Okay. And then in the specifications, the type of this service. So node port is the type of this service, and the selector. So what is selector? Why we use selector? We'll come back to that point. But then you have ports, right? So and type of protocol TCP. We have port, target port, and plus node port. I have mentioned these three ports: target port, port, and then node port. Okay. Right. Save it. And then also, so let me rename this actually. I'm going to rename my move ports to, let's say, so service and then port something. So let me create a pod and pod for service. Okay. Then dot YAML. So in this, what will be the kind? We mentioned the kind, right? What is the kind is? Service. Service is already created, right? We create a pod. Okay. Let's go with the pod service, and just like a normal source script, there's something different about this. Okay. Just like you mentioned metadata, and then kind is pod, and then your container information. But here you have container port. See, the container port has to be mentioned within the pod script, not the service script. The service script will be having cluster ports, target ports, and then node ports. But when we provide the port number, so for the container, that has to be while creating a container, not through the service. Okay, right. So now the question is, let's say I have my container created, also I have service created. But how the container service communication happens, how this pod or your pod or container, whatever, how the pod services are linked. How do we link them? Correct. So that's my label. So what is the label name is? So let's change the label name. What is the label name is? Here it is hello world. And then look at my first one. What is the first one? So ports, right? Service port. Yeah. So go with service port. And then also we have pod service. So if you look at this selector or label, So what is the label? Like I said, label is nothing but it's grouping, right? It is a group. Then, so what is the label of my selector or label? Both are called same. So what is the selector? It is hello world. And what is the what is the label here? Hello world. So since I'm creating both of them in a same group, and is the group name is same or not? The group name is same. So now the communication happens between your pod and then service. Okay. So here, while you create a service, we call it selector, and when you go with a pod, we call it a label. So it is grouping now. So we are grouping them, and we are adding both of them into same label. If the label name does not match, then the pod won't be communicating, or pod service communication never happens. Both should be same. Okay. So that is the importance of labels. Now we can change the labels. Let's change the labels better. Let's say test label. Also, I change the label name. So what was the label name? Test label. That's a label name. And so do we use some different commands to create a service? So how do you run your manifest? How to run a manifest? kubectl apply file name. So there is no different command to create a service. See, the logic is everything written in your YAML file. So we are just running the YAML file, running our configuration file. Okay. So there is no different command. So what is that? The service. Okay. The provider port is already allocated. So this port number, it says it's already in use. So then we change the port numbers. So what was that? Service port. We change the, so just change it to 8. So, and port number I've changed to 8081. Node port number changed to 30038. Okay. So let's run that. kubectl apply your file name. So now the service is created, and what is our service name is test service is our service name. And how do you list services? kubectl get services. So which is our test service. Okay. And then so that you can see that that is your cluster port. I mean, that's your port for cluster purpose, and this is the port for node purpose. Node port. We have two different ports. And then what's next thing? What's next? Pod. Create a pod. Yes. kubectl, and then apply -f. And what is that? Pod service, right? So the image was Nginx was the image. Okay. Then so that is created. You can see that now. kubectl get pods, and which one that was? Nginx. Did I give any name? What was the given name I have given? Nginx, right? Okay, that is 14 seconds ago. That's my so pod name. I haven't changed the pod name. That's okay. So that is my pod name. So moving on to kubectl and then describe. pod, and the pod name was Nginx, right? Nginx pod. And then, so I can show you that. That is what is the label, of course. So you can see here somewhere, where is it? Initial bloody. Anyway, that's label. So even we also have a command, I think so. We have a command called kubectl show labels or get labels. Show labels, right? Does it go? Just show labels like this. Okay. Show labels. Don't we have show labels? We should have hyphen labels. It's okay. What is the label name? I think this is not the correct. No. kubectl label resource name. Parameters must be specified. So at least one label update is required. We are not updating it anyway. I want to go with that label. It's only show labels. There's something called show labels. It's okay. You just let me know the command. I don't want to do it. So now go with that. So first again go with the services again. kubectl get services. Okay. Now I want to describe the service. What was the service name? Test service, right? Let's describe the service. So kubectl describe service name describe. So that's my node port number, which is 30038. That's my node. Okay, and that is for label. Even if you go with that show label, you get almost like same information. What are the services running in it, and what ports are running in it? You get the whole information of that label anyway. And that is my port. Port is 8081, and node port is 30038. Now let's check this out. Is my container or my pod can I access from outside? Okay. So how do I do that? How do I do that? Node port, okay. Suppose node port, but what is that final thing I want to access my pod? What is that? Post node IP. Node IP. Someone said you have set up the clusters, right? Who has set up the clusters? Only one. Did you set up on virtual or? This is a node. This is a node. What is that? 30038, right? So this is successfully pod is loaded. Okay, so node code is working successfully. But how about that port? What is the purpose of port? Within the cluster, right? That is node code is from outside, but I want to get that within the cluster. That means we must have two pods now. I'm going to create another pod. Okay. So once I create that pod, I log into the pod, and I'm going to ping this pod from the other pod. That is how we check the communication. Are they communicating or not? Okay. So I'm going to create another pod, and that pod so will be our Ubuntu pod, which is an OS pod. Once I am in that pod, I will be pinging this pod. If I'm able to get that, so same message. What was the message? Some welcome page. So the communication happening between the pods. Yeah. So how do we do that? So I take another pod, but I will be taking an Ubuntu pod. Okay. So I will be creating a pod over here. You remember this kubectl run command? When did we use that kubectl run? To create an pod, right? So remember that was the first command we have done it, right? So now I'm doing the same thing, kubectl run, and then so this is like docker run -it. What is that -it stands for? Interactive mode in terminal. So and the terminal is shell terminal, okay? And then what is next thing is, so which is my Ubuntu image. What is the image name is? Ubuntu. And then, so this is my Ubuntu, this is your name of the pod I'm going to create, and this is my image name. And then we have restart is never. So what is restart never means? So sometimes, so while you launch your pods, then your pod might be going online offline. If that happens, so then you try to restart your container, pod. So if you mention restart is never, then pods won't be restarted by themselves. But I want to go with my, so if you go with never. If you go with restart is true, then pods will be restarted even when you launch them. So it happened to us. So in Docker, so when I was creating a container, right, because of some volume issues, some memory issues, containers were going offline. But the same thing happens here, and we can automatically restart them. How to restart them? Using, so restart is equals to true. Okay. If you don't want to restart them, you go with so never. Okay. Never n is can. Okay. So first go with this. Now we log into the Ubuntu, which is in interactive mode. Okay, so we are in the pod. So that is my prompt. So what prompt it is? Shell prompt. You see that ash stands for shell prompt. Now go with, I'm going to ping it. Let's ping my pod. Okay, so how do I ping my pod? How to ping it? Port number, okay. Before the port number, which one? Yeah, what was that? So port number, of course, that is correct, but we need also hello world. So what is that hello world? That's our label, right? So try that now. But I'm using curl. So what is curl then? What is curl? The difference between ping versus curl. What's the difference? What is ping is for? Yeah. So are we able to communicate and send and request the data? Okay, that's ping is for. So curl is for. So I have some pages, some web pages. I want to display those web pages, but we cannot send the. I mean, we can still ping it, but I want to get the page displayed here. In that case, you can go with curl command. So go with that curl command. What was the label name? Test label. Is it correct? Test label name. Is it hello world? Test label. Okay, it's test label. So that is hello world, that is in the document, but it is test table we have created. Now again, just create same one, Ubuntu. Okay, but Ubuntu already exists, right? So it's already we have created the same pod. So you can go with deleting it, or else you can create another one. How to delete a pod? kubectl, delete, and then pod name. Okay, fine. Then go with kubectl, and then so do the same thing, but let's give a different name to the pod. The pod name is, let's say, a new pod. So try that curl, and then test label, and then port number 8081. But curl not found. What do we do? Curl not found. Sorry. So you are not in Linux sessions now. Okay, you're not in Linux sessions. So what is that? What do you do? So can I do curl now? Let's say curl, and then test label 8081. Could not resolve the post test label. So that was not found. Is it not like test label? So what we are given there? I think I have given the test label, right? Why that is not found? So what is the service name we have given there? Test. So why do we ping a label? Ping is service, right? What label has? Label has it's a group. Why do you ping it? Then 81. Ping the service, not the label. So what is the purpose of the service then? To access, right? Why do you ping a label? Yeah. So you got the same message. So this is the same display message, right? We had it on here. Okay. So then that is where the port is required. So in Docker, I want to create the same thing. How do you do that? How did you do it? Tell me. We have tried it. I want to ping, I want to log in from one container to the other container. How did we do that? See, someone asked me, are these concepts are enough for Docker? How many concepts you have learned from the set of concepts? So this is actually the question. So I have two different containers in Docker. I want to ping, I want to log in from one container to the other container. How do you do that? Link it? Okay. So what is that? What is the syntax? How do you link it? Same network. That is important, right? If they are not in the same network, will I be able to do it still? If they are the different network drivers. So one is under bridge driver, other one is on host driver. Can I ping it? Why? What is host driver? How many host drivers, how many host networks we can create? Only one. So host networks can be only one. You cannot have multiple. See, host itself means it's only the host. Docker itself is a host. You cannot create multiple hosts for this. Okay. And bridge drivers, can we create multiple bridge drivers? Sorry, multiple networks under bridge drivers. So then how do you link between these two containers? So the same question from yesterday, one of the interviews, yesterday itself. So that was a question. So I have my Jenkins running on container. I lost my container. Container is deleted. I'm launching another Jenkins container. How I can have the same data, whatever we had on the previous container. I want to have the same data. Volumes, right? So, correct. That's the volume using the volume drivers to map the volume drivers. And even she was asking for even for this syntaxes. And you know the position, that was a lead position for 8 years. Even in those kind of interviews as well, you can expect these questions. Okay. So see, first concentrate about the topics we have learned in the classes. That is important for us. You get thorough with that. Once you get thorough, and then mostly you will be able to clear your interviews with set of questions on the topics with these things. Okay. You concentrate on them first. Then you can think about the outside of it. Okay. Anyway, see the reason is, so like most of us, I mean some of you, not most of you, some of you, coming up to me and asking that, so is it enough? Is this is enough? So that is a very silly question. Okay, first concentrate on the things which are required, so which I taught you in the sessions first. Those are important things. Okay, so mostly those things I've covered almost like in Docker and Kubernetes, and like 80% of things. Okay, rest 20 things so might be different for so different applications. Okay, yeah. So now, so let's change the service type. So far we have gone to a service type which is node port service, right? So go with the service type called load balancer service type. So again, you can create a service first, or else, well, once before we go to that, move on to that. So we have created a Docker image, right? I don't remember that image name. So do you remember I have created that image for sample application? So the Docker using Docker file, I have created an image. And did I push that image? I don't think so. I have pushed it. Did I push it? I don't remember that whether I have pushed it or not. Don't remember it. So if I haven't done it, let's say you can do it. Now what are you going to do? So first create these two things. First create a service first. Create a pod service. Create that first. Everything is same as the same syntax. And the change whatever you do in your, so which one that is? This is your pod, right? I'm sorry. First we just first we go with that service port. Okay, so with the service port. So this is the same script you run first. Even the port numbers, you can go with the port numbers. So whatever the port numbers that is, go with the port numbers. Okay, and then what do you do next? In VI, and then what was that? Pod service. And here I'm going to try this image name. Okay, so my image name would be from my Docker registry. So get that image name. So image name in the sense in per Docker file. That's your repository name, right? So take a repository name. I don't think so I have pushed it or not. I don't think so I have pushed it. Don't know whether anyway. So go with that. That's your image. Okay. And give a tag, whatever the tag you have, give a tag. Okay. So then save it, and then you create so service first, and then you create a pod, and finally when you go with your so browser in here, when you enter something, the IP address and the port number, and your sample application must be loaded. Is it clear? But first you create a Docker file. How to create a Docker file for that? How to create Docker file for that sample application? We've gone through some simple steps. What are they? How to create a Docker file? If I give you a sample application, sample var file, can you tell me the steps of Docker file? How to write a Docker file? This is also a question. So no one is going to ask you about what is from, what is add. Yeah, add. Okay, that is a question. What is copy? So there will be questions, but mostly, so you'll be given this kind of scenario. Can you write a Docker file? This is my sample application. I want to copy that sample application onto my Docker host and as a container. What are the steps? Okay. Source file into Tomcat, the apps. Okay. So what is the command you use? Copy. Okay.
You have to run the Tomcat.
What is the command? CMD. Cat unit data search and then run. So apart from copy, we also have another keyword which is add keyword. So copy and then add. So what's the difference between these two? Copy, add, both do the same things. Copy the files to the container or image you're going to create. Okay. So, but for example, when we use add is, I'm copying an tar file. Let's say I'm adding a tar file to my image, and once it is been added, I want that has to be extracted automatically. In that case, you can use add. If you're simply copying it, let's say I have some files, I want to simply copy it from a host to the image, then we can use copy. But when we use add is nothing but whenever you just have some kind of extracted kind of tar files, I want them, whenever that file is added to my image, automatically that has to be extracted. In that case, you can go with add command. Okay. But anyway, this is a sample var file. So do I need to add it or copy? Sample.var file. Do I use add command or copy command? Copy. Why not add? Why not add? Why can't I use add instead of copy? See, we are copying that onto a Tomcat, right? This is not extracted file. This is a package. So Tomcat, what Tomcat does? Automatically, var files will be extracted. So it's a package. In that case, we can go with copy. And then make sure the status is started. How to start that? Container and search and then run. Okay. Then you can push it, and once you push it, so get that repository name and the tag number and make sure the application is running. Okay. Now moving to load balancer service. So you can try with the same service with load balancer. So everything is same. It's almost like there's no change except the service name will be changed to the load balancer service. So what's the service name here? It's node code. We change that to load balancer service. So that you can find the same thing even here. So load balancer service. This service name will be changed. You can try that script if you want. So that's a step. And what do you do for this? So this is your load balancer. So my service name is, you see the type is load balancer is a type, and rest all the things are the same, the port numbers and everything as usual. Now you try for that image. So what is the image? You're going to push it to the registry. Take that image. First, you run that with the help of node port, and secondly, you run that with the help of load balancer. Okay, and finally, you need to go and check that IP address should be running smoothly. That is what we want. You understand the requirement now? Now tell me the difference between where Docker comes, where Kubernetes comes. You understand the difference now? Where the difference? What's the difference when we use Docker, when we use Kubernetes now? Tell me. So we are creating containers with the help of Kubernetes. Then why we need Docker then? Okay, orchestration. Okay. So fine. Okay, then why we need Docker here? Why we need Docker? You're creating containers, you're creating pods. Sorry. Pull the images. Build the images. Okay. So if you want to build your images, we need Docker host. Yes, we need Docker. So you want to containerize the applications, right? Once you containerize the applications, yeah, then you orchestrate it. How do you containerize them? With the help of Docker. Okay. Then you can go with this orchestrating. So that means in Docker, the purpose is only for containers purpose. Images purpose, containerizing purpose. So mostly it is all on Kubernetes. So that is, and one more important question here, port number comparisons. Okay. So we have port numbers, different ports. So what is the difference between port, target port, and then container port, and then node port? And what are the services then? Load balancer service, and then so node port service. What is the other one? What is the other type of service? Container. Cluster IP, node port, load balance. Okay, I've created them this load balancer for other batch, but anyway, so you create them from yourself. So it's very simple. Okay, you create a load balancer service and cluster IP. Cluster IP is not required anyway. So cluster IP within the cluster. You can also use that port number. Okay, anyway, and then try that node port. Okay, so try this and let me know whether are you able to do these things so or not. And so you try for that image, try for that sample image. Okay. See how do you do that? Yeah. Any questions? Ask some technical questions. Don't ask me regarding non-technical. Ask me some technical questions. Just ask me about whatever you're practicing. Are you getting any errors? So what are the issues you are getting? No issues or no practice? Cluster setup, the document, I prepared it after a lot of efforts. I made it easy for you. If you try to Google it, it will take months for you to search all those documents. You won't be able to do it. That will take even months. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you. Then tomorrow onwards, make sure you attend it online.
Actually, can we back up the volume of the container? Once I see the container